Yeah, welcome back to Hyperbole. I hope you guys are doing well. It is Friday, TGIF. We are almost 1 week now post Metazoo Games official Water Tower event. It was their first event in this whole competitive sequence and series throughout this year. Leading into Caster Cup, it's going to be an unbelievable year. I wanted to briefly cover with you guys, what I feel, and girls I should say, what I feel were some of the most competitive cards that were played this weekend, and how I felt about them through testing, all the way through the competitive event, and what we saw during the weekend that really helped separate some of the top tier decks I would consider, or what the meta was playing. And it's really interesting. I would say, I think a lot of people, before the official tower format was released, for those people unfamiliar with Metazoo and the Metazoo Tower structure, it was their first, sequence of building a competitive series through these, designated tower locations. Some of them are at con festivals, some are at regular festivals. Like this one was at the Frogman Festival. So we're gonna see that throughout the year. But we didn't have guidance, but everybody was so pumped up. So we started deck building. And even myself, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do Water Dark. I'm ready to go. I'm going to start testing this out. So we put decks together, and then what did Metazoo do? They put out the document. It explained the requirements of a 60%, aura type needing to be of that tower. So not including Terras or the actual aura. And a lot of people, I think, struggled with that. I definitely struggled with that in the beginning. So you really had to be close and pay attention to your ratios and how many water cards you had. So for example, in a 40 card deck, which is the standard minimum deck, you had to have 24 water cards or water type pages. Could be beasties, could be spells, could be artifacts, etc. Could be a potion. So it could be something along those lines. What it couldn't be is a non-water, page, or a Terra page, or an aura, So we had to count for 24 water type pages within the whole spell book in a 40 card deck. And the ratios went up depending on how many type cards, etc. you needed, but that's just a basis. So it put a lot of restrictions. I think Metazoo really wanted to see water played out through its entirety and be true to water. So with the cards that are in format right now, it may change with new sets that come out. Natives right around the corner. We got Fusion Auras coming out. How that's going to change, how that's going to allow for more splashing, etc. of different types of auras together in one spellbook. I'm excited to see. But it puts some challenges and limitations. So that's one thing I would say if you're getting ready for the next tower. I would wait on Earth, or any other tower that you're planning to participate in, instead of going through all this tech testing and crafting and trying to do theories and all this other stuff until they actually release and finalize the format, let you know what the composition is, if it changes or if it stays the same, as far as the page type requirement within its spellbook, and what the active Terras are going to be. That was huge. I mean, that was huge, huge, huge. So once they reset all of that stuff, that's kind of like where the new evaluation started, is what cards benefit from the active Terra boost, which was ×3. So let's get into it. Water Baby, Water Baby, Water Baby. We saw this card. It's probably going to be hard to see on the screen. I'll flash it up. But a 1-drop card, super, super strong. It had a 90 attack power with Paralyze on its as an effect with its attack. It only had 10 life points, so it didn't have a boost in life points, but you were just basically using it as a big hammer to swing through. If you got lucky on the Paralyze, even on a target that had more LP, it couldn't hit back because it wouldn't have effect text with the Paralyze on it. So huge card. If it did get destroyed, again, consistent with the water aura characteristic, water's a bookmarking generating aura, so you got to bookmark a card assuming that you only had water type pages within your control if this beastie went off the field. Super huge, super huge. You could run 6 of them. I saw various amounts in spell books, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. It just kind of depends. We're not going to talk about ratios, we're just going to talk about utility. Bandage Man, Bandage Man, Bandage Man, this guy was a monster. With the bonuses of the Terras, he was 190 life points. That was a big benefit, is he could be a tank for absorbing attacks. He had the trap trait. He's got the infectious trait. He could be set as a trap. I like to play the traps this weekend. I think a lot of other people like the ability to play the trap this weekend. When he was flipped up as a trapped, if the target underneath that, he was set under was triggered for an attack, that prompts the trap to flip up. You pay the aura cost, which was 1 if you had a Band-Aid. That's why you saw this on the fourth wall list of many people. And it also gained first strike on flip, which was pretty big. So, it hits for 10, 3 frozen. If the attack goes through, again, you get the bookmark. Super huge in this format. The big thing, and I got to do it a couple successful times throughout the format, was if you got Water Baby to attack a card, let's say a frog, and you had a Bandage Man underneath it. If you got a Water Baby to attack into a frog, or, to attack into an artifact that you had Bandage Man underneath, assuming that you had the bandage as a claimable item, it would flip up, it gains first strike, it hits for 10, which is enough to kill Water Baby, and you get the bookmark. And because it killed something with the infectious trait, you get to make a token copy of this card. So it's like, boom, you got a whole nother defender. Super huge. Both as a trap. Like I said, if you caught Water Baby like that, you could just set it out into the field as an intimidating factor, and say, come and get me. I got a front line and an offensive line that I'm establishing here. Super huge. Bait Robbers. This was one of my favorite cards. There was a lot of favorite cards. This was one of my favorite cards that end up coming out of testing, and the reason why is it had 120 life points with the Terra, bonuses active, which is pretty big, because it would survive a lot of attacks, through the format. But the other really key distinguishing fact about this card and why people used it was because if you had a trap underneath it, let's demonstrate it. So if you had a trap underneath it, you could, even if it was underneath itself, you could attack the card, declare the target on itself, with the effect of the attack, traps underneath it would end combat, and you could bookmark 1. So again, true to water format, another bookmarking generating feature. So you can see, if you had a couple of these bait robbers out in the field, not only did, they potentially provided an offensive line for you to protect some of your other beasties or artifacts or whatever, but they allowed you to keep bookmarking, and that was huge. Bookmarking allows you to cycle through your deck and see more cards, so you're improving your consistency, of how you're playing your deck. So super huge. A lot of people played bait robbers that I think did well. I think I had 4 copies in my deck. Same thing with Bandage Man. I think I had 3, maybe 1 in the side deck. A huge card coming up here. Mania. This was not a surprise. This is an LGS promo that was, specific to overseas. Very hard to obtain. Very costly, I should say. I'm not sure what the market may be on this specific card, but I think right now it may be floating around 200. Yeah, it should hold value pretty well. There's 2 features about this card. You could contract it, meaning you could pay the aura cost, which was 3, and set it in. It's a flying beastie. It had 90 attack. So pretty good, flying is evasive strategies are good, but the other big thing here is you could pay 1 aura at any time, for the effect of bouncing a card. So let me walk you through a couple scenarios. Guy lays down or girl lays down, I should just say your opponent. Your opponent lays down a frog, right? Plays lightning in a bottle, on that frog. You're holding a mania. You got 1 aura left on your side. He thinks that he's going to charm, or she thinks they're going to charm whatever beastie you may have. Let's say it's your own frog or a Chessie, which is a valuable target for you, and you don't want to let that happen. Boom. You can't Smoky Spirit that because it's a power from the frog. So your only really, advantage to combat that is bouncing it, and you could do it with this card. Another key situation, if something got power up red, which we really didn't see a lot of power up red, you could bounce that, removes power up red. Another big thing would be, Chessie comes down, lightning in a bottle, Ultima Haha comes down, lightning in a bottle, etc. You could bounce those, get them to waste, their aura for dropping it, and a lightning in a bottle to reawaken it. So there's a lot of crafty things that you could do. Another thing that people didn't think about or may have overlooked is, let's say you put your frog down, then they pass turn, or you pass turn, they've got their frog down, you don't have this card in hand yet, next turn maybe you draw into this card, your frog's charmed, he's hurting, you could use this card to pay 1 to bounce your frog back up into your hand, which saves your frog, and then you could lay it, maybe you had a lightning in a bottle, wake it up and charm your opponent's frog. Super huge card for all those reasons. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. So, ugh, wug, ugh, wug, ugh, wug, ugh, wug. Ugh, wug was huge, and I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. There was a lot of people that were talking about Ugh Wug, and you know, he was really big. Look at this little, I mean, they say it's a fish, but he really looks like a seal to me, but we're going to stick with the beastie fish. He was hitting for 70. It had scared on its effect, so super huge. Big thing is if you were wearing a piece of scuba gear, it came in with fleet, meaning that when you set it down into the arena, it was ready to attack, and you could start hammering away on your opponent. Super huge. You know, it was a frog buster or a frog killer. Early game, you could use it to bust artifacts, you could use it to kill water babies, or you could just use it sometimes as a sacrifice. You know, if you had 2 of them and bang bang, and you want to run 1 into it, hit a target, let's say a Walla Walla Lake crustacean, which is a big beefy target. You could run it into one of those, or run it into a Chessie. You know, you put the scared on it, and then you want to finish it off, or with another one, or whatever. I'm just giving you an example. So it was super, super huge because of the fleet, you know, and coming in. I wish it had a little bit more attack power, but it is what it is. Had a pretty good life basis too. What was the life? It was 50 plus, you know, the modifier of 15, 95 basis points with the river active. So it survived, you know, a fairly significant amount of things in format, you know, but the big thing was fleet. Bloody Bones. Oh, and it can be set as a trap. You know, so another common theme here. A lot of these cards that I think were beneficial were both being able to be played either face up or as a trap. Bloody Bones. Bloody Bones was another card, 2 aura drop. You know, same as Ugh Wug. There was a lot of 2 drops that were useful, just like the 1 drops. Bloody Bones had trap. And, you know, it's got the fear trait on there. When it was contracted, you know, you roll for your chance at scaring an opponent, you know, or fearing their opponent back into their hand, opponent card, I should say. So super, super huge, you know, on this. The interesting feature, you could only have 2 of these per spell book, you know, so it was a really cool card, but it was limited that you could only have 2 copies per spell book. Ugh Wug, on the other hand, just like Water Baby, you could run a full 6. I think I had 3, you know. I wish I would have adjusted my ratio maybe a little bit more, put like 3 or put 4, and maybe have 1 or 2 in the side deck. That's how useful I felt Ugh Wug was. Same thing with Water Baby. I wish I had a couple more in the side deck as well. But Bloody Bones, just unbelievable. If its attack went through, it's got a 25 base damage attack with scared on it. If the attack goes through on a target, your spell book, you get to flip over a card. If that card is a water card, this is just an example. If you have the aura up, you can contract it. The other big thing though is, let's say, you know, you've already drawn for the turn, you didn't hit your water aura, so you can't play a water aura. You attack with Bloody Bones, the attack goes through, you flip up the top card on your spell book and it's a water aura. That water aura comes right into play. Super huge. It helps save your aura generating ability. You know, playing an aura per turn, keeping up with that is very important in all formats, especially the tower formats. So super, super huge. Bloody Bones, you know, it hit for 25, like I said, basis. It had the ocean and the island active, which was another 60 points on top of it. So you're hitting for 85. Super huge, super huge. Keyhole Crab. This is one that was kind of undecided. It's a 2-drop. You know, it hits for paralyzed, baseline of 15, but it lets you have the ability to spread out 20 additional damage to a target beastie, you know, but it doesn't deal damage from type advantage. This little guy has Defender, you know, so with 50 points and 50 basis points with Defender on life, it goes up to 100. You know, the buff on this card was only 25, you know, but it was for attack, so it's 25 times 3, 75, you know, plus your 15, so it's hitting for 90 with Paralyze. So it's a good card, but the reason why I didn't play this in my deck, we did see him get played, was because if something hit it, even though that it had Defender, like let's say Water Baby hit it for 90 and Paralyze. Maybe the Paralyze goes through, so it's frozen. Well, when you pass turn, the Defender life points, you know, only temporarily increase while you're on defense. So if it was hit for 90, it essentially dies when you pass the turn because it had 90 damage on it. Loveland Mailman, you know, I was super jacked up about this card. I still love this card a lot. It's a 2-drop, it's a 1 aura for water, it's a 1 for neutral. It's got Confusion. I was really, I guess, you know, disappointed, you know, that they didn't have any modifiers here for Terra bonuses, because if they did, we would have saw a lot more of this card. So being a 2-drop and comparing it to the couple other ones that I described, this has a 35, you know, if you're wearing Metazoo merch, you know, you get a 35 attack base there with Confusion. Confusion's huge because it automatically applies and on the beastie that you attack, and essentially that beastie is going to keep attacking until it kills itself. I think I got cut off there, but what I was saying is you could use that Loveland Mailman to attack a Chessie or another bigger target, put the Confusion on it, and essentially if it's got a huge attack swing, you know, it's just gonna bang, hit itself and kill itself, even though that Loveland Mailman would die as well. So super cool card. It just didn't make my deck because I felt like Bloody Bones was a little bit better. Definitely Ugwug was better. You know, there were better 2-drop options. And, you know, card deck space is limited. So I wanted to include it, but I left it out. But I did know that a couple people played. Now let's get into the 3-drops. Wow. Walla Walla Lake Crustacean, this big old beefy crab. This is one of the better cards in the game, regardless of having attack or LP boost from the 3 times Terras, you know. But this card is so good. It was so good throughout the format. It's got the stone skin. It's got you know, the health regen trait, which a lot of people, I think, kind of forget about at times. You know, you can generate or regenerate 10 life points, basis points as the turns pass. So, you know, you don't want to forget about that. It's a 3-drop, 1 neutral, 2 water. It's got 55 LP basis. You know, with the modifiers, it had plus an additional 60. You know, so you're up to 115. An arena effect, reduced damage. This page takes by half, rounded down after modifiers. This page cannot be placed into your chapter by opposing pages. So you can't bounce this, you can't Gumbaroo this, you couldn't Mania this, you couldn't bounce it any way back with an effect from a page. Now you could theoretically bounce it back with Scared if you ran a beastie or attacked with a beastie that had Scared, like Ugwug or like one of the other beasties, Bloody Bones, into this, put Scared onto it, and when it would fatigue, it'd have to roll, and if it rolled Tails, I believe, you know, was Scared, it would come back to its hand. You know, so the big thing there, but, you know, this guy was dealing 100 damage with Paralyze on its attack, so it could eat a lot of things up, you know, in this format. Super huge, both as a defender and at an attacker at time. It's got the Paralyze on its attack, you know, so Paralyze was huge, you know, Scared was huge. Those were pretty much the 2 biggest threats to the whole format as far as status effects. Frozen with the Bandage Man, you know, but definitely Scared, definitely Paralyzed, you know, was wreaking havoc throughout the weekend. If this card, if Walla Walla Lake Crustacean would happen to kill a beastie, you know, you bookmark 1. Again, another theme with water. You know, we like to bookmark cards. Bookmarking cards keeps you in the game, keeps you seeing more cards. Love the card. A lot of people played it. Fog Hog. You know, Fog Hog, 3-drop water. You know, this guy's got the fear trait as well when he comes in. You know, but the big thing is, you know, there's a contract effect here. If Fog is active, the coin flipped for fear is automatically considered heads. Means that on contract, you could pick any BC that you want, not including Walla Walla. You know, fear would be another effect. Not including Walla Walla, and fear them back to your hand. Super huge. You could fear a frog. You know, if you were behind and you couldn't deal with it, you could fear a Chessie. You could fear an Ultima Haha. You could fear anything you want automatically back to the hand. It's pretty sweet. See, you know, it had an effect on it as well. You may use this power once per turn, deal damage to all beasties in the arena without Flying, 5 damage. This power does not deal damage from type advantage. You didn't really see people, I don't think people using this for its power ability, more so than its just attack and the automatic fear like we discussed. But you had 15 times 3, so you got 45 on top of a 50 bases. This boy was hitting for 95 damage. Again, another card that, you know, depending on how you wanted to play, you know, would give you options to deal with different threats as they hit the board by your opponent. Spiteful Mermaid of Pyramid Lake. Super huge card, depending on how you wanted to play again. You know, there were a couple different ways of how you wanted to play. Did you want to be more conservative, or did you want to be more aggressive, or did you want to find the sweet spot that was mid, you know, aggression and tempo control? This card would be super important if you're trying to play like that. When you contract it, it's a 1 neutral 2 water. You know, the contract effect is you get to search for a page in your spellbook that has trap on it, the trap trait. You know, so it's kind of like an index. You get to search for a card, you get to search for that trap that you need, maybe to protect the frog, maybe you need to protect an artifact or another valuable target that you don't want to go away so easy. You get to grab that, you get to put it into the arena underneath that card. You don't have to contract it, but you just get to go search that card. Super, super important function. Shuffle your spell book, and then you continue on with your turn. The catch to that is you couldn't put a trap underneath this card, you know, when you laid it into the arena. But still super, super beneficial, especially if you were playing traps and needing to find important traps. The arena effect, on top of how strong that search effect was, is the opposing caster on their first attack, they must declare an attack against a trap. So some people are like, hey, cool, you're playing traps, I'm just gonna avoid them. I'm never gonna attack that target, you know. I'm just gonna go around it, you know. I'm never gonna target that directly. Well, this card, why it's in the arena, makes you target a trap directly. Was super important. You know, you couldn't avoid them, at least on the first attack. It made you run into a trap. So, you know, depending on what you want to do, it was super strong. You know, it was really weak in the sense of attack power, only 20, you know, but you weren't using it for that. If you were playing a wind instrument, I'm sure you've seen, especially if you played, a couple people had wind instrument on there. During a combat, a beastie damaged by this attack must attack next turn. You know, I didn't find that to be that useful during testing. I don't think it came up that too much during play. It had a 60 basis point improvement after Terra buffs, you know, so it was a 110 beastie, survived a lot of things in this format, etc. So I thought it was an important card. And let's get to the main event, you know, the big dog, Chessie. This guy was a monster, you know, 1 neutral, 3 water, you know, the 4, he was in the 4 aura type, you know, as far as cost. So he was expensive, but wow, he had, right off the rip, he was doing 160 damage, plus an additional 10 damage for every other water type page in the arena. Doesn't matter if it's on your side or on your opponent's side. Super, super beneficial. This was the OTK, the 1-turn K machine. If you got him down, there's 20 pages or 15 to 20 pages in the arena. You got a couple lightning in a bottles, you know, boom, you could go through if they don't have anything to stop it, either a Smoky Spirit or any eligible defenders, you know, and you could win the game just like that. You could be behind, boom, 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 you're right back into it. So super incredible. Ultima Haha, you know, another dinosaur. This dino has invisibility because River's active. So, you know, any evasive type strategy, again, we talked about that. Any evasive type strategy was really, really huge. And, you know, it's, if you claimed Rice, you got an additional benefit, but it's only got a basis of 20, but with River being active, it gains the invisibility, it gains 150 damage, just like the Chessie card did, you know, so you're at 170, you know, with those two modifiers right there. If Rice is in the field, you're dealing an additional 20, you know, plus it's got a type advantage over water, so it's up to 210 with the water type advantage on its attack. Super, super incredible card, kills a lot of things, kills Bandage Man, you know, can't be blocked, etc. You know, so it proved to be a very strong, it was only 2 per spell book. Chessie was 4 per spell book, so both of those cards in combination, you know, when they hit the field, they were problems. You had to deal with them, just like the frog. You know, and I didn't even cover the frog as a 2-drop in here in terms of attacking, but I guess I'll go back and explain that now. So frog, you know, you can put 2 in there. Frog, man. Where's my frog? We gotta get him. What am I doing? I gotta show at least the frog on this video. You know, I'm not gonna... I don't know why I didn't put him out, because he doesn't attack. You know, but people weren't using the frog for his attack ability. They were using it for his charm ability, which is his power. It puts a whole bunch of different status effects on your opponent's card, you know, which were super, super important. You know, especially with an Ultima Haha, you could charm them. You could charm another frog. You could charm a crab, you know, the Walla Walla Lake. You could charm whatever you wanted. You can't charm artifacts, etc. But Frog was very important, you know, it's very important. There were a lot of very important cards, but Frog was a variable to deal with along with this beastie combination that we're talking through. Mishi Peshu, wow, wow, wow. Another, you know, a beastie panther. This thing was a monster. It's got first strike in the trap trait, super huge, hitting for a lot, swinging for a lot. It had 60, it was doing 150 base attack. It's got a type advantage over lightning, but that really didn't play into effect on its attack. So the big thing here is that when you contract it, and let's say you've got, I don't know, let's say this is your only card and you got 4 aura, and you pay the 4 aura cost, you lay it down into the field. When you contract this card, you get to bookmark at least until you have 4 pages, so you could draw 4 more cards in that scenario, and you could deal 10 damage to any target, like, you know, spread it out. For each card that you bookmark, you know, so you could bookmark 4, put 40 damage out there, and then, you know, maybe you drew into a lightning in a bottle, or another artifact, or an aura, or another beastie, etc. This card, you know, let you see potentially a lot more cards. You could set it as a trap as well, which it was dangerous. A lot of utility on Mishi Peshu there. Lots of utility. Let's get into it. The spell component, the spell review, oh my god. River of Time, we talked about it a little bit. This was the, hey, turn 1, we're going to lay down 2 artifacts, and we're going to lay down 1 water aura, we're going to play River of Time, and we're going to reset it, and we're off to the races. This was probably the most important card in the whole format because it was a 1-drop with River being active. Super crazy. If this happened early game to you, whether you were going first or second, really hurt, meaning that it put you at a disadvantage and you just had to feel, or you just had to figure out a way to deal with it before you got really way far behind. The tower, 2 neutral, 2 water, another super strong card. You could play it 2 different ways, a contract at any time, so you could bounce 2 things. If your opponent had more beasties than you could use it to bounce 2 of those beasties up to your opponent's hands, but you could also use it to reverse, you know, or decrease the modifiers of Terra bonuses. So let's say all Terra bonuses affecting beastie damage or LP are considered lose instead of gain until the end of this turn. So this could be used as almost like a board wipe, you know, so you play this. They got Walla Walla Lake Crustacean, Bloody Bones, Ugwug, you know, any of these, Mishi Peshu. There was a lot of things that if you played this and they didn't have a counter like a dampen, which is another important spell, you know, it just killed them and there's nothing that you could do about it. So if you were late in the game, it gave you an opportunity to potentially still save face in the game and have a chance to get back. Speaking of saving face, re-racking cards, staying in the game, New Year's New Beginnings. People play New Year's New Beginnings or New Beginnings. It just kind of depends on what your personal preference is. You know, it lets you bookmark the 7 cards. I like the New Year's New Beginnings. It lets you card dump. If, for example, let's say you open up, you got a kind of a crappy hand, you know, you don't have your water aura, you have one of these, and you don't have the beasties that you need, and you know you could sacrifice some of those. Maybe you don't have artifacts. Your opponent's kept your hand. You could drop that, turn 1, force a dump, you know, and your opponent, if they kept a good hand, especially with like 2 or 3 auras, you know, or 2 auras and 2 artifacts, man, that really hurt them. I mean, really hurt them. So you could catch people like that. Couple other big things here. You know, we talked about the aura generating ability. Wow. You know, aura was the main staple. We saw, I'm not going to get into ratios, I think everywhere down from like 6 all the way up to 10, just kind of depend on what your preference was and how many artifacts you were running. Mermaid Scales was super important. Water type page, you know, Megalodon Tooth was another one. The Sunken Gravestone was another one that had a water type page, and you could generate aura these were super huge. People played a varying amount. I saw all the way down from 0, you know, and people just preferred to play like 10 water aura versus people that wanted to play super aggressive, and they played 6 water aura and 6 artifacts. So you could go anywhere in that spectrum. I felt like the sweet spot was somewhere around 8 aura and maybe, you know, 2 to 4 artifacts. Just kind of depends on your personal preference and what you wanted to do. But to deal with that, absorb aura. A 0 aura cost, you know, lets you bookmark when you destroy an artifact page. Super important card for a lot of different reasons. Again, if your opponent was playing a lot of artifacts, gave you an opportunity to potentially deal with it, you know, especially if there were traps underneath it, it didn't matter. Absorb aura just blows it up, and then you get to bookmark. Bookmark, 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 bookmark. Bookmark is your friend, and it keeps you in the game. It keeps you seeing cards. That improves your consistency. You know, those are main things, especially in this format in particular, that are going to make your deck, you know, be successful. You know, let's get into the potions. We're just going to do the big 3. Lightning in a bottle, lightning in a bottle, lightning in a bottle. If you heard that in a turn, it was not good. Especially if you didn't have an answer. Doesn't matter if it was the Froggy Boy doing work, if it was Chessie, if it was Ultima Haha, or just, you know, maybe something else, a creative play to deal with an artifact. If you heard those words, you are in trouble. Super, super important potion just to keep the momentum and keep the pressure on. Another way to potentially deal with that was the Smoky Spirit, 0 aura cost. You know, and a lot of people, some people may get confused, so we'll cover that briefly. Lightning in a Bottle is lightning aura type. Smoky Spirits is dark aura type. There's 0 aura cost. So some people are like, well, don't you have to have a dark, or don't you have to have a lightning? No, there's 0 aura cost, so you can play them in any deck because you don't need to have any aura to contract them. Just like the absorb aura is 0 neutral. But Smoky Spirits lets you stop an attack. So if somebody's swinging at you, especially like a Chessie, let's say the board's loaded up, there's 25 pages on the board or whatever, and they bring in a Chessie, they lightning in a bottle it, you don't have any active defenders, you know, boom, Smoky Spirits. You could stop a huge attack, you know, like that scenario, Chessie swinging for 450, you know, wow, you know, that survival on that one turn could get you in position to do the same exact thing, you know, lay a Chessie down, lightning in a bottle, and then maybe you win, you know. So super important card. Another one that came into play, but I don't think was as valuable as lightning in a bottle or Smoking Spirits, was Toxic Water. Toxic Water removes traits from beasties, especially ones that are difficult to deal with and you don't have an answer for. So you could remove traits from Crab, you can remove them from, the big thing I would think would be Ultima Haha. If you didn't have an answer, you can't Charm Frog, maybe you lost both your frogs through the course of, you know, an individual game match. And, you know, the only other way that you could really deal with that would be a Toxic Water, remove its invisibility, then it's only got 90 life points and you could deal with it. So just a different way of dealing with threats, you know, and that's pretty much it. I think we've talked to bottom. I learned a lot, you know, throughout this whole process, testing, retesting, you know, playing. I learned a lot competitively playing. I'm so grateful that I got to play. I played against some really, really good people, and I just thank you for, you know, the games, and I had a lot of fun. I can't wait to play in Earth and some of the other events coming up. Like I said, we're encouraging more people to play. We're an official Metazoo partner. If you want to support me, support the channel and what we're doing here, you know, you could always shop with me at hyperbolestore.com. I will have pre-orders up for native, so if you're looking for a pre-order partner, you know, and you need one, you know, please consider shopping with me. But thank you guys so much for supporting me, supporting the content. Until next time, the magic is real. Metazoo, yeah!